everyone, my name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's the Game Week 28 preview. So we're going to go through some of your topics and questions, give you my opinion, thoughts and that kind of thing. So stuff that's come up is Traore, what to do with him, whether we should sell Grealish or not, Sykes versus Bolly, Martial versus Fernandes, Captaincy, and a bunch of other stuff as well, including some differentials. So before we jump into that, this video has been sponsored by OneFootball once again. So if you've not already tried it out, completely free app, there's a handy link in the description below, or you can just search OneFootball on the Android, iOS stores. Like I said, it's completely free. Football news, team news, lineup news, live scores pushed straight to your phone on the weekend as well. Everything you want as an FPL manager. So if you've not already tried it out, click that link in the description below, give it a try for free, or just search OneFootball on the Android and iOS stores. So first up, we're going to talk about Traore. Obviously a cheap midfielder, a lot of managers getting maybe a little bit frustrated with him. He's missed the last 2 league games, been a substitute and came on in both and got 1 point. And I did talk about this a bit in the team selection preview series, but going to go into maybe a little bit more detail here and also talk about some options for replacements as well. And that kind of comes in with talking about Grealish too. So let's go with Traore first. So obviously, yeah, like I said, a lot of people worried, substitute in the last 2 matches. Against Leicester and Norwich. And in the last game, they actually played 3-5-2, and Jota did really well. And I've talked about this already, but he did quite well in that formation last year. They kind of switched in the second half of the season. He really kind of turned it on at that point, and was quite a differential, which he could be again this year. I think it's worth mentioning, though, that in the 2 kind of last league games where he has been benched, they did play 3-4-3 against Leicester, with Neto playing on the right instead of Traore and Jota on the left. So I don't think at this stage we can be 100% certain that the switch to 3-5-2 has happened. They might have used it in Europa League, but in the league they've mostly played 3-4-3. So right now, I think it's way too early to say for sure they're going to play 3-5-2. And also, let's not forget, Wolves are having a pretty good season, and a lot of that is down to that 3-4-3 formation, with Doherty as the wing-back and Traore playing kind of right wing as well. So let's not forget that too early. I don't think there's necessarily going to be a massively quick switch to 3-5-2. And obviously for the Leicester game that he missed as well, he did have that kind of shoulder injury. I think it was a dislocated shoulder, in fact, which he had before. So kind of nursing that a bit. And obviously there was Europa League before the last game as well, of which there's going to be more of that going forward, of course. But just coming back from an injury, maybe his minutes were managed for that reason. It's hard to say for sure. But they have another Europa League game this week on Thursday. Obviously, if you're watching this on Wednesday, then the game hasn't happened yet. And they've already got a 4-0 lead. So I'm going to be watching that match closely to see kind of who gets their minutes managed, who maybe gets a rest as well. So, for example, if Jimenez plays and Jota gets a rest, but Traore plays, and that would make me a little bit worried that they maybe play 3-5-2 in the next league game. Jota comes in fully fit, and they can kind of do without Traore again. But again, it's hard to say whether that's definitely happened. I think if Traore had been fully fit the last 2 games, no shoulder injuries or anything, then I would pretty much be getting rid of him. But as it stands, I can see an argument to give him 1 more game just to see what happens. But keep an eye on that Thursday game. If Traore plays 90 minutes and other players get rested, that would be a bit of a kind of warning sign for me that maybe he needs to go, and I start looking at replacements. And before we talk about replacements, I want to talk about what to do with Grealish as well, because the kind of replacements for both these players are similarly priced. So Grealish, blank. 1 goal, 1 assist in the last 5 games. A blank in the game week just gone. So only 2 attacking returns in the last 5. He has probably been a bit unlucky not to get more. If you look at the underlying stats, 10 chances created, 10 goal attempts, and 9 of those in the box as well. That's over the last 4 matches. So they're pretty decent numbers. Obviously, you've got to factor in, and no offence to Villa fans, of course, but you've got to factor in he does play for Aston Villa. He's not passing to the likes of Aguero or Aubameyang when he's creating these chances. So obviously, not only does he have to create the chance, he has to rely on someone else to put them away. But still, 9 shots in the box gives quite a decent bit of goal threat. So I do like him, and I can see why people have had him in their teams. I had him very briefly and got rid of him. One thing I think maybe we've got to start thinking about soon, which you can't really account for in tables, is how players are going to react to actually being in a relegation battle. Obviously, they've known for a long time it's going to be a bit of a struggle down there. But as the games get closer to the end of the season, obviously it becomes a reality then. And I think someone like Grealish is definitely the type of player that will fight and fight and fight till the end. But will all the other Villa players? We'll have to wait and see if they actually get dragged into the relegation zone, because right now they're 1 place outside. How will that affect them? So there's a lot of things to think about there. And I think the fixtures are not that fantastic either. So it's a blank this week. It's obviously why people are thinking of getting rid. Leicester away, Chelsea at home, Newcastle away, Wolves at home, Liverpool away, Man United at home. So I'm not going to go through each of those fixtures individually because you could make arguments to why it's not that bad of a fixture. But overall, as a run of games, it's not ideal for Grealish. And they're not really fixtures that I would want going into kind of maybe even getting into the relegation zone soon. Could kind of really damage morale, and who knows how Villa will react. Like I said, I think Grealish should be fine, but he does have 10 other teammates as well, so we'll see what happens. Now, whether you should get rid of him or not, I mean, I would potentially be looking to get rid of him this week. I think the blank plus the fixture run, it's a good time to get off him. But obviously, remember, he is the talisman of that team. He has got good underlying stats, and he has been probably unlucky not to score more. So I definitely don't think he's a must-sell. If I had to prioritise between the two, I'd probably get rid of Traore first. As it stands, the only thing obviously to consider with Traore, he'll definitely play in game week 31. So if he does keep his place, obviously you've got another player for that blank game week if you're not going to use your kind of wild card or free hit. Now, in terms of replacements, I think Leicester are kind of top of my list. I personally really like Harvey Barnes. It's kind of close between him and Perez. The last 4 matches, Perez, 3 chances created. Barnes has created 5, so 2 more. Barnes has had 7 shots versus Perez's 5. With 6 of those in the box versus 4. And he's got a higher expected goal involvement as well, although he has played around 60 minutes more. So it's quite close between those two, but I prefer Harvey Barnes. And I think the fixture run Leicester are about to go on could provide some good rewards as well. Obviously, they were both bench versus Man City. I do think they'll probably both come in. We should get early team news, or I hope we'll get early team news before Friday's deadline, which we'll see if they both start. But it was kind of a tactical switch, and I think with Chowdhury back from suspension, there's every chance they kind of go back to a more like a 4-1-4-1 formation. In terms of other players, you've got McNeil, bit of a hero for me, of course, in the double game week. I think, sorry, not double game week, in the bench boost that I played last week. I don't think you should be expecting too many goals if you go for McNeil. Only 1 shot in the box in the last 4, but he has created 10 chances. So his kind of expected assist is kind of why I brought him in. It was actually quite high up in terms of midfielders. So again, another player that's definitely going to play in game week 31, quite cheap at 6 million. So you could consider him as a replacement, but don't expect him to be getting 14 points every week. Sarri's back for Watford. He could change Watford's fortunes. Only got kind of bench appearance against Man United, but going forward could be okay. But the fixtures are tough. Liverpool and Leicester in the next 3. So probably a bit of a punt too far for me. If you wanted to go for another punt, you've got Mason Mount, 6.1 million. I actually thought he looked quite good against Man United and did all right in the Spurs game as well. Bournemouth away, Everton at home, and Villa away are the next 3. So that's a nice time to take a punt on a player like that. The only problem is in that kind of midfield area, they've got Jorginho, Mount himself, Kante when he's back fit, Kovacic, who looked really good in the last game, Barkley and Loftus-Cheek. So they've got a lot of players in and around those positions who could play there. So that would probably worry me a bit. But they're kind of the options. I think Harvey Barnes and Perez would be top of my list. And Barnes is the one I'm looking at maybe bringing in for Traore. And then kind of talking about Mason Mount, I also picked out some differentials. So people are probably at this stage of the season looking for differentials. And I think if you want to climb the ranks, I would not be looking for differentials for the sake of it. Do not bring in a player just because they're low owned, because you think, well, if they do well, then that would be great. Because if you don't think they're going to do well to start with, what is the point in bringing them in? But I looked at top 10k ownership. Now, I know a lot of us aren't at top 10k, but that's kind of where we want to be. And if you look at overall ownership, it includes kind of dead teams and stuff like that as well. So I went for top 10k ownership from livefpl.net. And there's a few players. So I've just talked about Mason Mount. He's only 3.11% owned. I actually think a player I'd prefer to get from that Chelsea team would be Reece James, 0.76% owned. Like I said, Bournemouth away, Everton at home, Villa away up next. Quite an attacking fullback, even played wing back in the last game. Seems to have that right back spot nailed down. So 0.76%. I really like him. I don't have anywhere to fit him in my team because of the defenders I've bought. If I was on wildcard 5 million, I'd take a punt there, I think. Bruno Fernandes, going to talk about him a bit more in a minute, 7.6%. Dwight McNeil, 0.1% if you wanted to go for him. Patrick Van Aanholt, I know it's a bit of a knee-jerk because he just got 15 points, but 0.34%. And Crystal Palace have got some pretty okay fixtures. Harvey Barnes already mentioned, 5.14%. And Diogo Jota, if they do stick to that 3-5-2, 0.8% owned, could be a better option. Jimenez potentially for a bit of a cheaper price as well. So there are some differentials who I think are good without going differential for differential's sake. Maybe consider them going forward. So Saiss versus Bolly, hopefully I'm pronouncing Saiss right as well. And Martial versus Fernandes actually came up quite a bit in the kind of questions and topics replies you put up on Twitter and YouTube. So we'll start with Saiss versus Bolly first. So first of all, I think Wolves in general look like great options in defence. I think if you've got the money to go for Doherty, very attacking, could be an option. But obviously it does cost, I think it's 6.1 million at this point. So it's a lot more money than Saiss or Bolly. In fact, versus Saiss, it's almost 2 million more. And I'm just not sure I'd be prepared to pay that right now. Bolly's obviously come back in, 3 games, 3 clean sheets. So that makes me not even think that Spurs away is even that bad of a fixture this week. Of course, Spurs could score, but without Son and Kane, and Wolves doing very good defence, it could be another clean sheet there. And even if it's not, afterwards you've got Brighton at home, West Ham away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away. It doesn't really get on paper much better than that. Now, in terms of nailed onness, if you want to call that a word, no one is really ahead of Bolly in that defence. He is the first one on the team sheet, so you know 100% he's going to start. I do think, though, that being said, that Saiss is pretty much his place to lose now. And I think when I bought Bolly in, it was kind of, I need that 100% nailed-on player. But now I've given it a bit more thought, and maybe it's a little bit of hindsight because Saiss got the assist this week. But Dendoncker tends to have gotten played in midfield when they don't have any injury concerns. And Bennett's obviously gone on loan to Leicester, so there's not a huge amount of competition for that place. He's also cheaper, 4.4 million, so cheaper than Bolly. And in the last 3 game weeks I took a look at, and I used 3 game weeks because that's when Bolly's back, only Van Dijk has had more shots in the box than Saiss. So Saiss has had 5, Van Dijk's had 6, and Bolly's only had 1. Now, obviously, he did hit the crossbar and have that goal disallowed as well. But obviously, yeah, offside, fair enough. If that had gone in, maybe we're talking a little bit differently. But in terms of underlying numbers, looking forward, who's going to get more chances? It does look like it's going to be Saiss, and for 0.2, 0.3 million less, he's probably the one that I would go for. And we know Bolly can score goals as well, like I said, but I just think for that cheap price of 4.4 million, Saiss looks like probably the better option right now. And Bruno Fernandes versus Martial is an interesting one, of course. Bruno's really hit the ground running, so you've got a very, very small sample size, but 7.3 points per match over the first 3 games that he's played. That's the same as Mo Salah for the whole season. Now, obviously, Salah's done it over a whole season. He's more expensive, etc. That's a pretty nice start for Fernandes. And you have to remember, in the first game, he had to play quite deep as well. And I think in the last couple of games, especially in Europe as well, he's been able to get a bit further forward. That being said, Martial has also been very consistent. Not quite 7.3 points per match, but over a longer period of time. In the last 12 game weeks, he's on 5.8 points per match, which is not kind of out of this world scoring, but it's pretty consistent for a player that people get frustrated with because he's not consistent. So I do think Martial is a good option too. So again, like Bolly versus Saiss, I've gone for the last 3 game weeks because that's when Bruno Fernandes has been in the side. They've had 1 big chance each, 7 chances created for Fernandes versus 2 for Martial, to be expected. Fernandes has also had more shots, 10 goal attempts versus 6 for Martial, although only 2 in the box, whereas 5 of the 6 for Martial has been in the box, which is to be expected, really. Bruno Fernandes is on penalties, which is a pretty big deal, I think. It didn't look like there was any discussion. It looks like he is just the penalty taker now. And Rashford being out for a while obviously means there's not much of a worry there. They've already had 10 penalties in the league this year, so hopefully plenty more to come. The other thing that I like to look at as well, and I said before about differentials, not taking a differential for the sake of it, but Martial's owned by 14.7% overall, and it's only 7% for Fernandes. And it's similar in the top 10k. Martial is owned by 29.29%. Fernandes only 7.66. So he's a genuine differential versus Martial. And if you think there's a chance he outscores him, he's definitely the one to go for. Only slightly more expensive. I don't think there's a huge amount in it anyway. And I think penalties would be the kind of deciding factor, as well as him kind of just getting more integrated in that team, getting to go forward a bit more as well. It kind of promises that more points are coming for Fernandes. Don't expect 7 odd points per game, but you should get a good kind of score ticking over as the weeks go on. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about kind of the state of the game, so blanks and double game weeks briefly, because it's kind of could be its own video, to be honest, and this one's already probably quite long. So game week 28, there's blank game week. Sheffield United, Arsenal, Man City and Villa are all missing out. We already know this. We're at game week 28 now. If you've not already planned for it, it's probably a bit late. I don't think you need to worry too much about fielding 11 players. It really comes down to the quality. So if you've got maybe 9 or 10 and they're really good players, and the only player you can bring in is someone you don't really think is going to score well anyway, or you don't want them long term, it's probably better just to go without them. Now, the only thing I would say is, and everyone loves hearing this every year, if you've got a player that's going to blank and you want rid of them anyway, and you're going to bring in another player that you want long term, then that player that's blanking is obviously going to get 0 points. And you would hope that the person that comes in gets at least 2. So if you take a hit, you've already made back 2 points that you weren't going to get anyway. So if you've got less than 11 players playing, there's a player you want to bring in for the long term. So I'm a big fan of taking hits in blank game weeks, but it has to be for a quality player, a player you genuinely want long term. If it's just for one game week, don't think it's worth it. So quality over quantity, although it is obviously nice to have 11 players playing every week. In terms of double game week, so we could have a double game week in game week 29 for Man City, but we just don't know at the moment whether that's going to happen. Hopefully, if it does happen, we'll find out before the game week 28 deadline comes along. So this week is definitely a week to hold your transfers. We might get early team news, we might get double game week notifications. Definitely hold your transfers as long as you can this week if you haven't already used them. Game week 31 is going to be blank game week based on teams that go through to the FA Cup quarterfinals. Now, we can't say for sure which teams they're going to be yet, of course, but there are kind of, the fixtures kind of are good for the Premier League teams, so there could be a lot of blanks. So Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Sheffield United, Leicester, Brighton, Arsenal, Southampton, Spurs and West Ham are all quite likely to blank that week. We'll have to wait and see for sure, but it could happen. Liverpool probably as well, although it depends whether they beat Chelsea. If Liverpool win that match, they'll also blank. If Chelsea win that match, Liverpool will actually play in game week 31. And then that could make game week 31 interesting because a lot of people are using their free hit in that week. But if Liverpool are playing, we've already owned 3 of their players, potentially 3 Wolves players. If you own kind of Taylor, Pope or McNeil for Burnley, that's another team that aren't going to blank as well. And suddenly you're getting close to 11 players that you might be happy to play, in which case you could save the free hit for a double game week. So it's still quite hard, even though we know a bit about blanks and doubles, to say exactly what you should do. But I'm kind of leaving my options open with game week 31. I got 3 Wolves players, have 3 Liverpool, have 2 Burnley. So if I could get through game week 31 without missing too many big kind of key players that I would want anyway, then I'd probably save my free hit to use in one of the big double game weeks, which should be game week 34 or 37. But at the moment, they've not been announced, so I'm not going to talk about them too much. So if you've got your wild card, try and hold it as long as possible. If you need to use it, go for it, but try and hold it for the blanks and doubles. Don't worry about this week, it's too late, and quantity over quality, or other way around, sorry, quality over quantity for sure. And last up, we've got captaincy, and I know people find it boring, but let's be honest, Liverpool are the standouts again this week, especially with kind of Man City and Arsenal not playing. So they play Watford, who defensively have not been looking good recently. I think in the last 4 matches, only 2 teams have conceded more shots in the box than Watford have. So it kind of looks like the honeymoon period is over for Watford. Just conceded 3 to Man United. You expect Liverpool to be able to match that, if not beat it. Salah's kind of the standout pick in terms of underlying stats, but to be honest, Mane very rarely actually matches Salah, but still seems to be able to keep up in points. So if I had Mane, again, similar to last week, because he's lower owned, I'd be pretty tempted just to captain him, hope he can match or even beat Salah, and if he beats him, that's a bigger climb up the rankings. I will say about Firmino, as an outside punt, his stats are pretty good versus Mane and Salah, especially for away games. He has more big chances in away games than those two. And even over the last 4, I think he's got 5 big chances, which is also more than both Mane and Salah. So he is getting the chances, he just hasn't put them away. And he doesn't have a great home record for whatever reason that might be. But he is getting the chances. On another day, he puts some of them away and he gets a big score. So I own Salah and Firmino. And there is a small part of me, it's very small because I know I could be punished by Salah, that wants to go for a differential in Firmino. But realistically, it's going to be Salah or Mane this week. I still don't really see too much to split them. Salah's got the stats, but he always does anyway. I think you just take a almost flip a coin for that. The other games that I've got written up here, so Leicester versus Norwich, obviously Vardy could be an option against Norwich. Norwich are not really a team I don't expect Norwich to win that match necessarily, but I don't expect them to get kind of smashed by Leicester either. And Vardy's obviously been off form, but they've had some pretty tough games, and Didi's been out as well. Now, he's not necessarily going to be back yet, but the games are going to get easier for Leicester, and Vardy could have scored against Man City. If that had gone in, maybe we would be considering him more highly for captaincy this week. But I look at that on paper and just think I can't not say that Vardy versus Norwich is a good or a bad option, because I think he is a good option this week. I just think Liverpool are just so far ahead at the moment. That's where you should go. West Ham versus Southampton. I mentioned this on the team selection preview. I think that Ings just hasn't done enough recently to make me confident enough to captain him. I don't want to get rid of him, but captaincy, I'm just not sure. Especially when West Ham, I thought, actually defended quite well against Liverpool, even if they did concede 3 goals. And Everton versus Man United, look, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison have been great. Fernandes has come in and done well. Martial has been consistent, like I said, but I would not consider any of them of captaincy in this game. I just think it could be a low-scoring affair. Man United have actually been doing okay defensively. And Everton did concede 3 to Arsenal, but I'm not sure Man United away to Everton are going to put 3 past them as well. So obviously with any of the things I'm saying, you don't necessarily need 3, 4 or 5 goals to get a good captaincy score, but it does help to have more goals, more chances of being involved. So as a punt, you could go Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison, but that is a massive punt. I'm really not keen on Ings. I think it's Liverpool is where it's at. And Vardy, if you want to take a punt, I do think that Norwich game is a decent one. But again, I'm not expecting them to get turned over. He only needs 1 chance to get 3 bonus, 9 points. I think there's bigger scores waiting in that Liverpool game. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you found it useful, make sure to give it a like. Subscribe if you're new around here. Hit that notification bell so you know when all the other videos are going live. Check out the team selection preview from yesterday. Check out the stream tomorrow, Thursday, 9 o'clock. I'll be live streaming, doing a kind of Q&A as always. And leave me any comments below. If you've got any comments to make about what I've said, any other questions and stuff, make sure to leave a comment below and I'll try and get back to as many as possible. And lastly, if you've not tried out OneFootball completely free, Android, iOS stores, just search OneFootball or click the link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll catch you the same time next week. Good luck in Game Week 28. Hopefully it's a big one. Green arrows all around. Catch you later.